Hey everyone, just wanted to let you all know that I'm back on deck now and things have settled down a bit. I've been on T for 16 weeks today. I've had 2 shots so far. I'll be having one more of the Sustanon 100 next week before I go on to the 250, which is what I'll be then staying on. So I'll be having a bit of a double whammy celebration this weekend, 16 weeks on T, and then Monday's my birthday. Yes, I'll be 38, oh my god. So I'm going to roll them into one on the weekend. Not really much else to report at this point. I was thinking I might do another video to tell you all a couple of funny stories about experiences I've had in dealing with people who think it's kind of a sport to make fun of trans folk. Just a quick one that's come up in the last couple of days. A friend of mine has just recently found out that his application to change his gender marker has been refused on the grounds that because he hasn't had a histo yet, basically he's chosen not to do that because of the way the histo is done, and it could affect the outcome of future lower surgery, and also because he's had problems with bleeding when he had his chest surgery, so obviously very aware of the risks there and wants to be careful. The official verdict was that if he stops the T in the future he could still reproduce, and that is why they've denied him changing his gender marker. As he put it, it smacks of "don't let the freaks breed," which is kind of extremely discriminatory. They're essentially saying that because he could possibly stop T in the future and get pregnant, which anyone who knows this guy would say is utterly ridiculous. He's one of the most masculine people I know, and he would never stop T, let alone get pregnant. Because he won't do this, he is not a man. And to be recognised as his true gender, he has to be basically rendered sterile before they'll do it. What the fuck? As someone else described it, what the Gender Recognition Board are basically doing fits under the UN definition of genocide, which is an act committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, racial or religious group as such by A, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, and B, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. There are a couple of reasons, but these are the two which specifically apply in this case. The second one is pretty self-explanatory. The first one is because the requirements here in order to be permitted to apply to change a gender marker are firstly a minimum of 2 years on testosterone, and secondly having had 2 irreversible surgical procedures for the purpose of affirming your gender. Now, it does not state which particular surgical procedures you have to have had, but it does state that one of those is permitted to be taking testosterone for 2 years, because at that point, taking T for that long, the effects are considered irreversible. Now, this friend has had more than one surgery on his chest, which, as I said before, caused serious problems with bleeding, so he's obviously understandably very cautious about having any further surgery of any type, and obviously with hysterectomies and whatnot there is quite a large risk of complications. But the fact that these experts can demand that he has a hysterectomy to satisfy their definition of what makes him a male is just absolutely crazy. I mean, by all the written definitions, this guy has filled all the requirements. 2 years on T, 2 irreversible surgical procedures, and he's been living successfully full-time as a man for quite a long time. But what the hell is the board's problem? For a lot of us, being denied recognition of our true gender causes serious psychological harm, not to mention the fact that you have the inevitable difficulties that arise when your appearance and your presentation doesn't match the gender marker on your official paperwork, and all the crap that that's caused by that. I mean, it's hard enough to get by as a trans person anyway when you're sort of working up to having a gender marker change, but to get to the point where this guy is, where he's jumped through all the hoops, done all the required things, and to still be refused acknowledgement that he is who he is, that is just totally discriminatory and abusive. Now, I mean, aside from the fact that I know this guy personally, this issue affects me because I am going to have to go through the same shit to get my gender marker changed in the future. And the shrimp that I see just happens to be one of the members of this Gender Recognition Board. And some people wonder why a lot of us call these people the gatekeepers, because they are, and they do play with us and discriminate against us, because trans folk are apparently a second-class citizen. We are a minority, and in this country we still do not have the same rights as ordinarily gendered folk. Basically, unless we've had our gender marker changed, we're not allowed to marry. Regardless of the gender marker status, we are not allowed to marry if we're in a same-sex relationship. Hello, my situation, because my partner is also a trans man. We're not allowed to have children. You know, good job I had mine before I came out as trans, huh? We have no protection under the law at this point unless we are post-op transsexuals, because the law does not recognise our gender until it has been changed by the approval of the Gender Recognition Board. And the road to getting it changed is bloody difficult, because here no health insurance will cover the costs of transition at all. Some funds may cover parts of it, like partial rebates on the hormones, and some will cover parts of the cost of the surgery, although only the hospital costs, as far as I'm aware, like the cost for the surgeon and the anaesthetist and whatnot, actually still have to come out of your own pocket. And I know for myself, being on a disability pension as my sole current source of income, my testosterone, which I need, is not on the pharmaceutical benefits scheme here, so I have to pay the full price for my shots, which is about $30 for 3. Now that obviously doesn't sound like a lot, but when you consider that that amounts to about 10% of my weekly income, and that on that income I am supporting not only myself but 2 children that live with me full-time and 1 that comes part-time, that is a lot. And on top of that, the Medicare system doesn't cover surgery for trans folk at all. So for me, surgery is a long way off. I will basically have to pay all the costs out of my own pocket, which will amount to thousands of dollars. And on my current income, do you think I have any chance of saving that kind of money? Not likely. Even if I was going to join some sort of health insurance fund, that would cost me anywhere from $90 a month upwards, depending on the scheme and what kind of cover I had, and I would still have to pay some of the expenses out of my own pocket, which if I'm forking out for health insurance, again, I wouldn't be able to save up for it, so they don't make it easy. And there's a whole nother ballgame of, like, there's certain, like, for example, with hysterectomies and whatnot here, the problem with that, I can get a hysterectomy covered by Medicare, so I don't actually have to pay for it. The problem is that if I have this hysterectomy, if I want Medicare to pay for it, I have to have it done for medical reasons other than being transsexual, because it's obviously not covered by Medicare for being transsexual. But if I want, you know, I have to have that, and so they have to put whatever medical reason, like fibroids or something like that, you know. And then if that's the reason that they have listed, I cannot use that surgical procedure in the future as one of the surgeries that I've had for my gender reassignment. Now, that I find, you know, very discriminatory again. Yet another little hurdle they've put in the road for us. Anyway, that's another whole subject, so I digress. Now, if I, as the recipient of a pension, had any other medical condition, all my medications would be subsidised, so I would only have to pay about $5 per prescription. Any surgical procedures I would require for whatever condition it was I had would be paid for by Medicare, and I still would not have to pay a cent out of my own pocket. But because I'm transsexual, I'm paying for each and every psychiatrist visit out of my own pocket, which is $160 for a half-hour visit, which I have to pay up front on the day before I can claim a rebate of only $100 back from the Medicare office. My other therapist at $130 per visit, which again I have to get, I can get $110 back on that, but again I have to come up with $130 up front on the day per visit. My tea costs the full price because I can't get it on an authority prescription. That is on government approval to use, because I'm not a genetic male, and being transsexual is not recognised as an approved use by the government for testosterone.